In a quiet town surrounded by green hills and thick forests, Lieutenant Sarah Collins stood out like a beacon of strength and determination. She was a woman in a world where men often dominated, but her presence commanded respect. A skilled K9 handler with years of experience, Sarah had earned her place among the best. Her companions were not just any dogs, they were Titan and Shadow, two Belgian Malinois known for their intelligence, speed, and loyalty. Together they formed an unbeatable team. Sarah's days were filled with patrols, training sessions, and missions that tested her skills and endurance. The bond she shared with Titan and Soul was extraordinary. They weren't just tools for the job. They were her partners, her confidants, and her family. Every command she gave was met with unwavering obedience, and every glance exchanged between them spoke volumes. To Sarah, these dogs weren't merely animals, they were extensions of herself, her courage, and her heart. The town itself was picturesque, but it wasn't without its troubles. One group in particular made life difficult for everyone. The Iron Reapers, a rowdy biker gang notorious for breaking rules and causing chaos. They roared through streets on their loud motorcycles, leaving behind a trail of noise, fear, and destruction. Law enforcement struggled to keep them in check because they always seemed one step ahead, flaunting their rebellious attitude and mocking authority at every turn. Sarah had heard stories about the Iron Reapers, but she hadn't crossed paths with them yet. That changed one sunny afternoon when she stopped at a small roadside diner during her patrol. It was a simple stop, just enough time to refuel her vehicle and grab a quick bite to eat before heading back to duty. Little did she know, this ordinary stop would set off a chain of events she wouldn't soon forget. As Sarah stepped out of the diner, Titan and Shadow trotted beside her, their alert eyes scanning the area. Outside, a group of bikers lounged around their motorcycles, leather jackets gleaming under the sun. Among them was Razor, the leader of the Iron Reapers, a towering man with a scruffy beard and a smirk that could make anyone uneasy. When he saw Sarah in her uniform, his grin widened. He called out to her, his voice dripping with mockery. "Well, well, what do we have here? A little lady playing soldier?" His friends burst into laughter, their jeers echoing across the parking lot. Razor didn't stop there. He walked closer, deliberately invading her space. "You sure those big dogs listen to you?" he sneered, gesturing toward Titan and Shadow. "Maybe you should stick to desk jobs instead of trying to act tough." His words were meant to rattle her, to make her doubt herself. But Sarah didn't flinch. Years of facing challenges had taught her how to stay calm under pressure. Ignoring their taunts, she simply turned away, walking back to her vehicle with her head held high. As she drove off, she couldn't help but feel a spark of anger and anticipation. These bikers might think they were untouchable, but Sarah knew better. And deep down, she wondered if fate would bring them face to face again. If it did, she was ready. The encounter at the diner lingered in Sarah's mind long after she had driven away. Razor's mocking words echoed in her thoughts, not because they hurt her feelings, but because they reminded her of the constant uphill battle she faced as a woman in a male-dominated field. She wasn't new to this kind of treatment. People had doubted her abilities since the day she joined the military K9 unit. But what bothered her most was the way Razor dismissed her dogs, Titan and Shadow, as if they were mere props rather than highly trained professionals. As the days passed, reports about the Iron Reapers began to pile up on Sarah's desk. Complaints flooded in from local residents who were fed up with the bikers' reckless behavior. They sped through neighborhoods late at night, their engines roaring like thunder, waking families and scaring children. Trash cans were overturned, walls were tagged with graffiti, and some residents even reported being threatened when they tried to confront the gang. Law enforcement had tried to intervene, but the Iron Reapers always seemed to slip away, leaving behind only chaos and frustration. Sarah knew she couldn't ignore the situation any longer. Her patrols often took her near areas where the bikers congregated, and she had seen firsthand how their actions affected the community. Mothers held their kids tighter as the motorcycles roared past, and elderly neighbors peeked nervously out of their windows whenever the gang rode by. It wasn't just noise or vandalism, it was fear. fear that had taken root in the hearts of innocent people who deserved peace and safety. One evening, as Sarah reviewed the latest report, something caught her attention. Razor, emboldened by his earlier run-in with her, had posted a video online. In it, he stood surrounded by his gang, smirking into the camera. "Hey, soldier girl," he said, his tone dripping with mockery. "You think you're tough? Come, find us tonight at the old quarry. Let's see if your little guard dogs can handle real men." His friends cheered in the background, egging him on. The message was clear. He wanted to humiliate her further, to prove that she didn't belong in his world. Sarah sat back in her chair, her fingers tapping lightly on the desk. She knew this wasn't just about her anymore. It was about sending a message. If she backed down, it would only embolden Razor and his gang. Worse, it might make others hesitate to stand up to them too. On the other hand, walking into their territory alone was risky. These weren't ordinary troublemakers. They were dangerous, unpredictable, and outnumbered her 10-1. Still, she couldn't let fear dictate her actions. This was her job, her duty, and her responsibility. That night, Sarah spent hours preparing for what lay ahead. She studied maps of the quarry, memorizing every rock formation, slope, and hiding spot. She went over scenarios in her head, imagining how Razor and his gang might react if she showed up. Most importantly, she worked closely with Titan and Shadow, reinforcing commands and practicing advanced maneuvers designed to intimidate without causing harm. The dogs responded flawlessly, their movements sharp and precise. Watching them, Sarah felt a surge of confidence. Together, they were unstoppable. By the time morning arrived, Sarah had made up her mind. She wouldn't let Razor's taunts go unanswered. This wasn't about revenge or proving herself. It was about protecting the community and showing the Iron Reapers that no one was above accountability. With Titan and Shadow by her side, she was ready to face whatever challenges awaited her. Whatever happened next, she knew one thing for certain. Razor had no idea what he was truly up against. The decision to confront Razor and his gang didn't come lightly for Sarah. She understood the risks involved. Walking into a remote location like the old quarry, surrounded by rugged terrain and shadowy corners, was dangerous enough on its own. Add to that the unpredictable nature of the Iron Reapers, and the situation could escalate quickly. But Sarah wasn't one to shy away from a challenge. Her years of training had taught her how to think strategically, stay calm under pressure, and adapt to whatever came her way. Before heading out, Sarah spent hours meticulously planning every detail. She studied maps of the quarry, noting entrances, exits, and potential hiding spots where bikers might lurk. The quarry was an eerie place, with jagged rocks jutting out of the ground and deep pits left behind from years of mining. It was the perfect spot for someone looking to ambush or intimidate, and Razor knew it. That's why he chose it. He wanted to prove that he was untouchable, that no one, especially not a little lady, could stand up to him. Sarah also reviewed footage of previous encounters law enforcement had with the Iron Reapers. From what she gathered, the gang operated like a pack of wolves, loud, aggressive, and always sticking together. They thrived on intimidation, using their numbers and bravado to overwhelm anyone who dared cross them. But Sarah had something they didn't: discipline, preparation, and two highly trained partners who could read her every move. Her next step was ensuring Titan and Shadow were ready for the task ahead. She worked tirelessly with them, practicing commands and running drills designed to simulate real-world scenarios. The dogs responded flawlessly, their movements sharp and precise. When she signaled for Titan to bark, his booming voice echoed through the training area, sending shivers down the spines of nearby recruits. Shadow, meanwhile, demonstrated his agility by darting between obstacles with lightning speed, pinning practice dummies to the ground without hesitation. Watching them, Sarah felt a surge of pride. These weren't just animals, they were warriors, capable of handling anything thrown their way. As night fell, Sarah geared up, double-checking her equipment and making sure everything was in place. She wore her standard issue uniform, but tonight, she added extra gear, protective padding, a tactical flashlight, and a whistle specially designed to communicate with Titan and Shadow. Before leaving, she gave each dog a reassuring pat, whispering words of encouragement. "We've got this," she said softly, meeting their eager eyes. "Stay sharp." On the drive to the quarry, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. What if Razor tried to flee? What if his gang attacked all at once? What if things turned violent? She pushed these thoughts aside, focusing instead on the plan she'd rehearsed countless times. Confidence wasn't about ignoring fear, it was about moving forward despite it. And Sarah had plenty of reasons to feel confident. She trusted herself, her training, and most importantly, her dogs. When she arrived at the edge of the quarry, the scene unfolded exactly as she'd imagined. The faint glow of bonfires illuminated the area, casting flickering shadows across the rocky landscape. Dozens of motorcycles were parked haphazardly, their chrome surfaces glinting under the moonlight. Laughter and loud music filled the air, blending with the occasional rev of an engine. Razor stood at the center of it all, flanked by his crew, a cocky grin plastered across his face. Sarah took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was about to happen. This wasn't just a test of strength, it was a test of character. Could she rise above the taunts and threats? Could she show Razor and his gang that there were consequences for their actions? As she stepped forward, Titan and Shadow close at her side. She reminded herself of why she was here. It wasn't for revenge or recognition. It was for the people who lived in fear because of men like Razor. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain. Razor had no idea what he was truly up against. As Sarah approached the edge of the quarry, the night air was thick with tension. The distant hum of cicadas mixed with the low rumble of motorcycle engines and the rowdy laughter of the Iron Reapers. Shadows danced across the jagged rocks cast by flickering bonfires that illuminated the scene like something out of a wild outlaw movie. Razor stood tall near the center, his leather jacket gleaming under the firelight, surrounded by his gang. They were drinking, joking, and revving their bikes, completely unaware of the storm about to hit them. Sarah took a moment to observe from afar, her sharp eyes scanning every detail. She noted how the bikers lounged carelessly around the quarry, their guard down. Some leaned against their motorcycles, others sprawled on the ground, passing bottles back and forth. Their confidence bordered on arrogance, as if they believed no one would dare challenge them here. But Sarah wasn't just anyone. She had trained for situations like this where strategy mattered more than brute force. She signaled Titan and Shadow to stay close, their muscles coiled and ready. The dogs moved silently beside her, their instincts sharp, their focus unshakable. To an outsider, they might have looked calm, even docile. But Sarah knew better. Beneath their sleek coats lay power and precision, waiting for her command. Every step she took was deliberate, calculated and steady. She didn't rush. Instead, she let the weight of her presence sink in before making her move. When Sarah finally stepped into the light of the bonfire, the noise began to die down. At first, the bikers didn't notice her. Then someone pointed and the group turned as one, their laughter fading into stunned silence. Razor's grin faltered for a split second, but he quickly recovered, puffing out his chest as he strode forward. "Well, well," he drawled, his voice dripping with mockery. "Look who decided to show up after all." The gang erupted into jeers and catcalls, their bravado returning in full force. One biker shouted, "Thought you'd chicken out, soldier girl." Another added, "Let's see if those puppy dogs can save you now." Sarah ignored the taunts, her expression calm and unreadable. She planted her feet firmly, her posture radiating authority. Beside her, Titan let out a low growl, the sound deep and menacing. It echoed through the quarry, silencing the crowd instantly. Razor's smile wavered again, but he tried to play it off. "Oh, so the dogs bite too?" he sneered, taking another step closer. His attempt to appear fearless fell flat when Shadow suddenly darted forward, stopping just inches from Razor's boots. The dog's teeth weren't bared, but his stance was unmistakably threatening. Razor froze, his bravado crumbling as he stumbled backward, nearly tripping over his own feet. The rest of the gang watched nervously, unsure what to do. No one expected Sarah to bring such disciplined, intimidating animals, or that she could control them so effortlessly. When one biker lunged toward her, thinking he could catch her off guard, Sarah raised her hand slightly. In response, Titan sprang into action, positioning himself between Sarah and the attacker. With a single bark, loud and piercing, Titan sent the man stumbling back, his face pale with fear. Sarah didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Her actions spoke louder than any retort ever could. Each movement, each signal to her dogs demonstrated her mastery and control. The bikers exchanged uneasy glances, realizing too late that they had underestimated her. What started as a game for Razor and his crew had turned into something far more serious and far more dangerous than they anticipated. For Sarah, this wasn't about revenge or proving herself. It was about sending a clear message. Respect the law, respect others, and never mistake kindness for weakness. As the chaos unfolded around her, she remained composed, her focus unwavering. With Titan and Shadow at her side, she was unstoppable. And deep down, Razor and his gang were beginning to understand exactly what they were up against. The quarry, once filled with the loud bravado of the Iron Reapers, now buzzed with tension so thick it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. Razor's earlier confidence had crumbled into uncertainty as Sarah and her dogs took control of the situation. Titan and Shadow moved with purpose, their every step deliberate and commanding. The bikers, who moments ago had been laughing and jeering, now stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Razor tried to regain his composure, barking orders at his gang. "What are you all standing around for? Get her!" he shouted, pointing at Sarah. But his words carried little weight now. His men hesitated, glancing nervously at the dogs. No one wanted to be the first to step forward, not after seeing how quickly Titan and Shadow could neutralize threats. The fear in their eyes was palpable, and Sarah could see the cracks forming in their tough exteriors. One biker, emboldened by desperation, or perhaps sheer stupidity, decided to make a move. He lunged toward Sarah, swinging wildly in an attempt to intimidate her. But before he could even get close, Shadow sprang into action. In a blur of motion, the dog darted forward, circling the man and pinning him to the ground with precision. Shadow didn't bite or harm him. He simply held the biker in place, his teeth inches from the man's arm, enough to send a clear message. Resistance was futile. The rest of the gang watched in stunned silence, their bravado replaced by panic. Another biker attempted to flee, thinking he could escape unnoticed, but Sarah anticipated this. With a sharp whistle, she signaled Titan to give chase. The Belgian Malinois bolted after the fleeing man, his speed unmatched. Within seconds, Titan had cut off the biker's path, blocking his escape with a deep guttural growl that stopped him dead in his tracks. The man raised his hands in surrender, his face pale with fear. Razor, realizing his gang was falling apart, tried to take matters into his own hands. He grabbed a metal pipe lying nearby, brandishing it like a weapon. "You think your mutts scare me?" he snarled, though his voice trembled slightly. Sarah didn't respond. Instead, she gave Titan a subtle hand signal. The dog immediately stepped forward, his powerful frame radiating dominance. Razor hesitated, gripping the pipe tighter, but when Titan let out a thunderous bark, the sound reverberating through the quarry, Razor dropped the weapon and stumbled back. Chaos erupted among the remaining bikers. Some tried to run, only to find themselves cornered by Shadow, who moved with eerie speed and accuracy. Others surrendered without a fight, too afraid to test the limits of Sarah's dogs. It was clear that these weren't ordinary animals. They were highly trained professionals capable of taking down multiple opponents without causing permanent harm. Every movement Titan and Shadow made was calculated, every growl a warning that left no room for doubt. Through it all, Sarah remained calm and composed, her presence anchoring the scene. She didn't raise her voice or resort to aggression. Instead, she relied on her training and the unbreakable bond she shared with her dogs. Her commands were simple yet effective, guiding Titan and Shadow with precision. The message was clear. This wasn't about violence, it was about discipline, respect, and accountability. As the last of the bikers fell into line, their arrogance replaced by fear and shame, Razor finally realized the gravity of his mistake. He had underestimated Sarah, thinking she was just another person to mock and intimidate. But she was far more than that. She was a leader, a protector, and someone who wouldn't back down when faced with injustice. And alongside her were two loyal companions who embodied strength, loyalty, and unwavering dedication. The showdown wasn't over yet, but the tide had turned completely. Razor and his gang were no longer the predators. They were the prey, and Sarah, with Titan and Shadow at her side, had proven beyond any doubt that they were not to be trifled with. With the chaos brought under control, Sarah stood tall in the center of the quarry, her commanding presence radiating authority. The Iron Reapers, once loud and overbearing, were now subdued, their earlier bravado replaced by a mix of fear and shame. Razor, who had started the night brimming with arrogance, now looked like a cornered animal, his confidence shattered. His gang was scattered, some lying on the ground, others standing awkwardly with their hands raised in surrender. No one dared to move or speak without permission. Sarah took a step forward, her voice steady and clear as she addressed the group. "This isn't about me," she began, her tone firm but measured. "It's about the people you've been terrorizing, the families who can't sleep because of your noise, the businesses you've vandalized, and the community you've intimidated. You think being tough means breaking rules and scaring others? That's not strength. Real strength is knowing when to take responsibility for your actions." Her words hung heavy in the air, silencing even the faintest murmur among the bikers. Razor shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact. For the first time that night, he seemed unsure of himself. A few members of his gang exchanged guilty glances, their bravado melting away as they realized the impact of their behavior. They weren't just facing a woman and her dogs. They were confronting the consequences of their own choices. Razor finally spoke, though his usual cockiness was gone. All right, he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "You made your point, we'll back off." He glanced at Titan and Shadow, still poised and ready to act, and swallowed hard. "Just call off your dogs, okay?" Sarah didn't respond immediately. Instead, she gave Titan and Shadow a subtle signal to stand down. The dogs obeyed instantly, retreating slightly but remaining alert. Their mere presence continued to keep the bikers in check, a silent reminder of what could happen if things escalated again. Sarah crossed her arms and fixed Razor with a piercing gaze. "Apologies mean nothing unless you prove them with action," she said firmly. "If I hear one more complaint about you or your gang causing trouble, we'll have this conversation again, and next time it won't end here." Razor nodded quickly, his usual swagger completely absent. "Got it," he mumbled. "No more trouble. Promise." Though his words sounded sincere, Sarah knew better than to trust promises alone. She turned to address the rest of the gang. "This is your chance to change," she told them. "Show the community that you're capable of doing the right thing. Or keep making bad decisions, it's up to you." The bikers exchanged uneasy looks, clearly shaken by the events of the night. Some muttered apologies under their breath, while others simply nodded in agreement. None of them dared to argue or challenge her further. The lesson had been delivered loud and clear. There were consequences for reckless behavior, and Sarah wasn't someone to be taken lightly. As the gang began gathering their belongings and preparing to leave, Razor lingered for a moment. He hesitated, then approached Sarah cautiously, keeping a safe distance from Titan and Shadow. "Look," he said quietly, scratching the back of his neck. I'm sorry for what I said earlier, about you not belonging here or whatever. Guess I was wrong." Sarah studied him for a moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she gave a small nod. "Being wrong isn't the problem," she replied. "Refusing to learn from it is. Don't let tonight be wasted on pride. You've got a chance to do better. Take it." With that, Razor stepped back, his face flushed with embarrassment. He signaled to his gang, and together, they mounted their motorcycles and roared out of the quarry, leaving behind only the faint smell of burning rubber and diesel fumes. As their engines faded into the distance, the quarry fell silent once more. the tension lifting like a storm cloud after rain. Sarah exhaled deeply, allowing herself a brief moment of relief. Beside her, Titan and Shadow relaxed visibly, their tails wagging gently as they nuzzled against her legs. She knelt down to give each dog an affectionate pat, whispering her gratitude. "Good job, boys," she said softly. "You were perfect." Though the confrontation was over, Sarah knew the real test lay ahead. Would the Iron Reapers honor their promise, or would they return to their old ways? Only time would tell. But for now, she had done what she set out to do: protect the community, assert accountability, and remind everyone, including herself, that respect was earned, not given freely. With Titan and Shadow by her side, she felt ready to face whatever came next. In the days that followed the showdown at the quarry, news of Sarah's encounter with the Iron Reapers spread like wildfire through the small town. Word traveled fast, especially in a close-knit community where everyone knew each other's business. At first it was just whispers, locals recounting what they'd heard about how that soldier woman and her dogs had stood up to the notorious biker gang. But soon those whispers turned into full-blown conversations, shared over coffee at diners, during school pickups, and even in grocery store aisles. Residents who had once lived in fear of the Iron Reapers now spoke openly about feeling safer. Parents no longer worried about their children playing outside after dark, and shop owners noticed fewer incidents of vandalism. It wasn't just the absence of trouble. It was the sense that someone had finally drawn a line in the sand, showing that the bikers weren't untouchable, and that someone was Lieutenant Sarah Collins. For Sarah, life returned to its usual rhythm, or as close to usual as it could get after such an event. Her patrols continued without interruption, but something had shifted. People greeted her warmly, wherever she went, offering smiles, nods, or words of thanks. One elderly woman stopped her on the street to say, "You've done us all a great service, young lady, thank you." Another man, a father of 3, shook her hand and told her his kids could sleep peacefully again because of her bravery. These moments touched Sarah deeply, reminding her why she chose this path in the first place. Even the Iron Reapers seemed to have taken her warning to heart, at least for now. Razor and his gang kept a low profile, avoiding the rowdy behavior that had once defined them. They still rode their motorcycles through town occasionally, but they did so quietly, sticking to main roads and steering clear of residential areas. Some residents speculated that they were simply lying low until things blew over, while others believed Sarah's actions might have sparked real change within the group. Either way, the difference was undeniable. The air of intimidation that once surrounded them had faded. Sarah's commanding officer also took note of her actions that night. While he reminded her to avoid unnecessary risks in the future, he couldn't deny the positive impact she'd made. Her handling of the situation demonstrated not only her skills as a K-9 handler, but also her ability to de-escalate conflicts and command respect. As a result, she began receiving recognition beyond her immediate unit. Higher-ups praised her professionalism, and her story became a talking point among military leaders, inspiring discussions about leadership, discipline, and the power of teamwork. But perhaps the most significant change came from within Sarah herself. The confrontation at the quarry had tested her resolve in ways she hadn't expected. Facing down Razor and his gang wasn't just about proving herself. It was about reaffirming her belief in the values she stood for. Courage, integrity, and accountability weren't just words to her. They were principles she lived by every day. Through the experience, she grew more confident in her abilities, knowing she could handle whatever challenges lay ahead. Titan and Shadow, too, became local legends in their own right. Residents often stopped Sarah during her patrols to admire the dogs, marveling at their discipline and loyalty. Children would ask if they could pet Titan, while adults joked about wanting their own guardian angels like Shadow. To Sarah, this was proof of the bond she shared with her partners, a bond built on trust, training, and mutual respect. As weeks turned into months, Sarah reflected on everything that had happened. She realized that the showdown at the quarry wasn't just a personal victory. It was a reminder of the ripple effect one person's actions could create. By standing up to the Iron Reapers, She hadn't just protected the community, she had inspired others to believe in the possibility of change. And though she didn't seek recognition or praise, she couldn't help but feel proud of what she and her dogs had accomplished together. Life in the town slowly returned to normal, but the memory of that night lingered in the hearts of those who witnessed it, or even just heard about it. For Sarah, Titan, and Shadow, it was another chapter in their journey, one that reinforced their purpose and strengthened their unbreakable bond. Whatever challenges awaited them next, they faced them as a team, ready, determined, and unstoppable. Months had passed since the night at the quarry, and while life in the small town had settled into its usual rhythm, the impact of Sarah's actions lingered like a quiet but powerful undercurrent. The Iron Reapers were still around, but their presence was far less menacing. Razor and his gang kept to themselves, avoiding trouble and steering clear of confrontations with law enforcement or the community. Whether out of genuine change or fear of another encounter with Sarah and her dogs, no one could say for sure. But what mattered most was that peace had been restored. Sarah continued her patrols, her bond with Titan and Shadow stronger than ever. The dogs seemed to sense the respect she now commanded wherever she went. Children often ran up to greet them during her stops, their eyes wide with admiration as they asked endless questions about the dog's training and abilities. "Are they really as fast as race cars?" one boy asked excitedly, earning laughter from his parents. Sarah always took the time to answer patiently, using these moments to teach kids about responsibility, teamwork, and the importance of treating animals with kindness. The recognition Sarah received extended beyond the town. Her commanding officers submitted reports highlighting her bravery and leadership during the confrontation with the Iron Reapers. These documents eventually reached higher levels of the military chain of command, leading to formal commendations and new opportunities for advancement within her unit. While Sarah didn't crave accolades, she appreciated the acknowledgement, not for herself but because it validated the hard work and dedication she poured into her role every day. What surprised Sarah most, however, was the way her story inspired others, especially young women who dreamed of careers in fields traditionally dominated by men. Local schools invited her to speak at assemblies, where students listened intently as she shared stories of overcoming doubt, staying disciplined, and trusting in her abilities. She never portrayed herself as a hero. Instead, she emphasized the value of perseverance, preparation, and believing in oneself. "Don't let anyone tell you that you can't do something," she told a group of high school students during one visit. "If you're willing to put in the effort, there's nothing you can't achieve." Titan and Shadow became symbols of strength and loyalty, not just within the military but in the hearts of the townspeople. Residents often joked that the dogs deserved medals of their own, given how they'd helped restore order to the community. For Sarah, this only reinforced what she already knew. These dogs weren't just tools of her trade. They were partners, companions, and extensions of her very spirit. Their unwavering dedication reminded her daily why she loved her job so much. As our time went on, Sarah found herself reflecting more deeply on the legacy she hoped to leave behind. It wasn't about fame or titles. It was about making a difference no matter how small. Every child who looked up to her, every resident who felt safer walking down the street, and every person who learned to stand up for themselves because of her example. That was her true reward. One evening, as she sat on the porch of her modest home, watching Titan and Shadow play in the fading sunlight, Sarah felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The journey hadn't always been easy, and she knew challenges would continue to arise. But she also knew she wasn't alone. With her loyal companions by her side and the support of a grateful community behind her, she was ready to face whatever came next. In the end, Sarah's story wasn't just about standing up to bullies or proving doubters wrong. It was about resilience, courage, and the unshakable belief that even in the face of adversity, one person and one team could make a lasting impact. And as long as she had Titan and Shadow trotting faithfully beside her, there was no limit to what they could accomplish together.